We're on US 95 and Valley View Boulevard, headed for Springs Preserve. This is the parking area of Springs Preserve in Las Vegas, one of the places visitors must see if in fact they have a little mobility and a lot of curiosity. There are museums here. There's a market here. This is a Thursday and there was a open-air market for several hours today. There are classes. There are animals. There are lots of things to do for people of all ages. And this, sadly, is my first visit to Springs Preserve. It is a beautiful day in Las Vegas, and I couldn't be happier to be here. This is the Springs Preserve main entrance, and the sign right over here says Springs Preserve is a non-smoking facility. No outside food or beverages are permitted. No firearms or weapons are permitted. All bags, backpacks, and packages are subject to inspection. Shirts and shoes are required at all times. Children must be accompanied by a parent or a guardian. Here's where you buy your ticket as a Las Vegas resident and a senior. My ticket was only $9.95, I think it was. Once you get your ticket, as these two ladies who are out-of-towners did, come to the gentleman here under the umbrella. He gives you a brochure, as you can see, and says, "Start your walk this way." And so we will. Well, our first visit down the path is to an area called the Canyon. Of course, Las Vegas is not very far from the Big Canyon. This is the Origin Museum, and we shall see what is inside.
Okay.
In the lobby area of the Origin Museum, a museum devoted to Las Vegas and its background, is this very interesting piece. I don't think you can see it, but there are names on this marble ball. These are folks who donated the money for this piece. This is a, tell me again how many pounds?
3,200.
I have a short memory. 3,200 pound marble ball that is floating just on the power of the water underneath. You could watch it for hours.
Almost all of the world's water is in our salty seas, leaving less than 1% for us to drink. So when fresh water unexpectedly springs up, the effect can be profound, especially in one of the driest places on Earth. Welcome to the Mojave. 22,000 square miles of the most beautiful desert landscape on the planet. But don't be deceived. The Mojave is a world of extremes. Temperatures that drop below freezing at night and reach well over 100 degrees at midday. Droughts which can last years at a time. Flash floods that sweep the desert floor without warning. It takes a hardy soul to survive, much less thrive in a place like this. Not exactly where you would expect to find one of the world's fastest growing cities. So, why is Las Vegas here? That's a story that will take us through the ages and bring us right back to where you're sitting. Because this is where it all began.
Even the floor is interesting in this museum. Here is a creek, and here is the main floor welcoming you to the museum.
Here I am, white fluffy cloud on the left. There we go. Guess what I am? A spring in the middle of the desert. Now, you're probably saying to yourself, what? You're up in a cloud. How could you be a spring? The answer to that is my amazing journey. Now, Jake and Jesse have this thing about some water cycle, but trust me, there's no cycling involved. Here's how it really works. I start up here in the clouds. Looks peaceful, doesn't it? But these guys will drop you in a flash. Okay, that's my cue. Goggles, check. Target, acquired. Spring Mountains, here I come! The ride down is usually pretty easy. The real trick is executing a nice soft landing. Perfect!
Open up. Don't try this with a real monster.
I see it.
Oh. Maybe they're that close. That's his parts. We're in the live animal display area. Live animals that one might find in and around Las Vegas. And I hope you can see our friend here, the Sidewinder. And he moves forward on his belly and throws his body forward diagonally in a loop. So only sections of it are touching the hot surface at any one time. Sidewinding also makes for better traction in loose sand. So no wonder he moves sideways.
He's right there. See? She's right there.
Well, the kids saw the fox and we did too. And they kept saying shush shush because the fox is asleep. And he's quite lovely the way he's all curled up there. These are what? Lizards, I think.
Girls.
Look up, girls.
Oh, that was a good one.
So there are lots of places for little ones to ride and have fun and pat and try and get on the lizard. I'm a little too little. It's fun, isn't it?
Which one are you liking best, Mama?
Makes no difference. We don't need much. Enough for a little house for you and me is all.
It's been reserved by the railroad for a courthouse or the like.
Good. This place could use a healthy dose of law and order.
It'll get better, I promise. There's good people settling here.
Why, there's nobody here but scoundrels and speculators. We have a perfectly good life in Salt Lake City. Why give it up for this?
Now, you know, this is our chance to get in on the beginning of something new and special.
Hoover Dam was, and still is, one of America's great success stories. Yet, as Las Vegas continues to grow, not even this mighty dam will be able to provide us with enough water. Today's challenge is to find more water and conserve what we've got.
This part of the museum, I understand, is devoted to solving crimes using insects and sort of a CSI approach. As you can see here, there is a parental warning, and strobe lights are in use.
Our show has become the most watched television program because you, the viewers, are intrigued by the work of forensic investigators. Each week our show reveals the fascinating work of scientists who, often working with the smallest shreds of evidence, piece together a crime and help bring the perpetrators to justice. My character's area of specialty is forensic entomology, or the use of insects to help solve crimes. Who knew that tiny little critters like flies, beetles, and maggots could be so useful to investigators? Insects often provide the missing piece of the crime scene puzzle. They can help investigators determine whether or not a body was moved, where the crime may have occurred, whether or not the victim had drugs or toxins in their system. And most importantly, these little bugs are considered to be one of the most reliable determinants of the time of death.
A place called the Trading Post, and this is Chris Sackmar. Chris, yes. What is the Trading Post?
The nature is the Trading Post. It's a natural item trading post. So the idea is kids can bring in rocks or shells or fossils, pine cones, things they find in their neighborhood, they bring them in, exchange them for points, and then they use the points to get other things.
So I assume you're busiest on weekends.
Weekends, yes. Morning, we get some field trips that come in and things, but yes, sometimes, yes. Summertime, yes.
Okay, all right. Well, what an interesting idea.
It is. It's a good program because the more they know about the items they bring in, the more points they get. So we're rewarding them for learning about nature.
Okay.
Because of that, we'll also take photographs or journal entries so they can take things from they can go to the national park and do a report and bring it in and still get something cool.
Great.
Nice.
Thank you.
Sure.
Welcome to the gardens, and we're starting off. It's spring, it's a beautiful day, and we do have lots of blooming things. The yellow flowers are Angelia daisies, and this seems to be the perfect time to see them. Elizabeth Taylor may have been known for her rocks, but these are rocks. And yes, one of the docents told me there are many weddings scheduled to be held here at Springs Preserve. I'm not sure what this amphitheater is used for, perhaps the classes, the garden classes. It is quite large and has plants. Fortunately, Springs Preserve has many places to sit because there's lots of walking if you really put your mind to it. There's one more interesting thing after another at the Springs Preserve, and this is called a wetland here. It says the area of cattails and reeds in front of you is actually recycling water for the Springs Preserve. Water from sinks and toilets on the Springs Preserve is piped to a holding tank. From there, the wastewater flows through this wetland to be purified by a natural filter of gravel, plants, and microbes. Smells and mosquitoes are not a problem because the stinky breakdown process happens below the gravel surface. Who knew? Another garden sculpture. Want to get a closer look? Look at these binoculars. Desert wildflower seeds wait until there is enough moisture to grow. Bare poppy seeds can wait for years until the rain, fall, and temperature are just right. And these yellow flowers are called gazania. They're shorter and they're bigger, but they're also like yellow daisies to me. We're having a final look at some of the wildflowers at Springs Preserve because we're headed back to the parking lot. I only spent several hours here. I could spend several days. I recommend Springs Preserve for anybody of any age who's capable of getting around by scooter, by walking, etc. A beautiful day and a beautiful visit.